What kind of person is it that makes people all over the world look forward to his arrival? A dazzling beam of light pierced the sky, a huge figure appeared. His whole body was covered with bright red fish scales, sharp ox horns grew on his head, a pair of huge wings stretched out behind him. Everyone was stunned, unable to believe that the god they had been looking forward to had a devil-like appearance. But you can never imagine that this creature that looks like an alien monster is actually the god who promotes the progress of human civilization. For a long time, he had hidden his identity and helped silently. Human technology had achieved unprecedented leaping development. He dispelled the rampant diseases and kept people away from the troubles of illness. He gave advanced science and technology to mankind free of charge, until the day when the alien civilization arrived. The whole world was immediately shrouded in panic. Human beings are still unaware that the fate they are about to face will completely change their lives. On this day, a farmer finished his farm work and was about to go home. A yellow plane suddenly appeared in the air. The dog at home noticed something unusual and barked wildly at the plane. The farmer, who was on the phone, didn't notice the abnormality behind him at all. What's even more strange was that the plane hovered vertically in the air without moving, as if secretly monitoring something. After a long time, along with the barking of the dog, the plane actually landed vertically. The farmer on the phone hung up because of poor signal, and called the dog to get into the house. He was completely unaware, and such a bizarre scene was quietly unfolding in another place. In the bustling area of the city, a huge aircraft was slowly descending through the gaps between the towering buildings. At the same time, the terminal signals of televisions were cut off. People's communication devices were also disrupted. People walking on the road looked up one after another, and people in office buildings also got up one after another to look out the window. People shouted to get out of here quickly, but the aircraft continued to descend. The huge sense of oppression made everyone panic. Dark clouds covered the whole city. In an instant, winds surged and clouds gathered. People took out their mobile phones one after another to take pictures of this very strange scene. Unexpectedly, the same thing was happening all over the world. Beijing, Mumbai, London, Rio de Janeiro, and so on. Huge unknown objects hovered over the cities. Could it be that the end of the world is really coming? No one knew the reason. Planes, man-made aircraft, and helicopters were all forced to make emergency landings. No one knew the purpose of these huge objects' visit. Military forces everywhere were preparing to deal with the unknown dangers ahead. Such a scene made people even more panicked. The appearance of the huge objects didn't cause any casualties, but mobile communications were cut off by them, and even more bizarre things followed. Those who had passed away were resurrected one after another, appearing beside their relatives. Everyone kept repeating the same words: "My name is Kalanon, and I'm the supervisor of Earth. No need to be afraid. I know the current situation is confusing and terrifying. Please try to understand. We have come from afar to help you. We are here to help humanity. Resolve wars, famine and inequality will all become things of the past. Suffering will end, and injustice will end. There will be no more tears, only happiness and safety." This is a message from the aliens through the resurrected dead. Every word reveals that they won't harm everyone, and their purpose in coming this time is to help everyone live a comfortable and peaceful life. Earth will become an ideal utopia for humanity. All wars and disasters, all those misfortunes and sufferings, will become things of the past. Humanity's golden age is about to arrive. After speaking, the resurrected people disappeared miraculously. Leaders from various countries held an emergency meeting. Some leaders believed that this was a trick by the aliens, and such things couldn't happen. Moreover, why would the aliens help us for no reason? There must be unknown secrets behind this. All that can be done now is to wait and see what happens, and then make the next decision. Most people believed that the aliens' purpose wasn't that simple. They might want to keep humans in captivity, and then destroy them all later. Everyone talked a lot about this. Our leading man, John, stepped forward. He believed that since we, as humans, cannot face unknown civilizations, instead of not knowing what to do, it's better to enjoy ourselves. Anyway, we all have to live. These words left everyone in silence, and John couldn't have imagined that it was these words that would rewrite his future fate. Late at night, the TV in John's house suddenly displayed strange symbols. Other electronic devices were also disturbed, and began to operate at an accelerated pace. All electrical appliances also began to malfunction one after another. John quietly looked out the window. Everything outside was very quiet. His girlfriend took out a gun and handed it to him, but John refused. The next second, the room shook violently. The two, along with their dog, quickly hid in the basement of the house. They thought it was a safe place. A strong beam of light shot in from outside. The basement door panel shook. The screws on it were loosening. The whole panel was removed in an instant. The house also slowly began to disintegrate. But at this point, a dazzling bright light shot towards John. A mysterious force pulled him forward. John walked forward slowly, but the mysterious light dismantled the house behind him. John saw a spherical object floating in mid-air. For the safety of his wife, He said he was willing to leave with it. The mysterious object understood his words, and the house behind him returned to its original state. Then he walked into the sphere. When John woke up again, he was already in a room, but the arrangement behind him made him feel familiar. There was no one in the room, but a mysterious voice sounded. It turns out this is where John and his ex-wife spent their honeymoon. They stayed here for 3 days and 3 nights without going out. The mysterious person knew everything about John, because he could get into other people's consciousness, and he introduced himself as the overlord of the alien civilization to John. The reason for doing this was to let John be his ambassador, that is, his spokesperson. John was quite hesitant. He didn't know if he should do this. To show his sincerity, the overlord gave him a strange device. John took it, half believing, as long as he made up his mind, he could open the device. Then, the news of John's abduction quickly made the news, and became the focus of the public. Many signal vehicles and police cars surrounded the door of his house. The media and the military were all at the door, until that sphere appeared again. His wife stepped forward and patted it. Soon John came out safely from inside, then the sphere left again. He had just gone through such an incident. The police came but didn't comfort him. Instead, they asked John to hand over the things in his hand. Under the threat of a pistol, John was about to hand it over, but at the moment he was about to hand it to the other person, he turned on the device. On the other side, a miracle happened. The alien spacecraft activated and emitted energy. At this point, the fate of humanity would be rewritten. The baby held high by the woman had a flushed face, as if suffering from a serious illness. After the mysterious power was emitted, the baby's expression gradually returned to normal. Such an operation immediately wiped out the trouble of humanity being surrounded by diseases. The disease recovery rate directly reached 60%, and this was done by the alien overlord. Their goal was to gain the trust of humanity. John thus attended various press conferences, became the spokesperson of the overlord, and delivered major speeches, all to help the overlord gain humanity's trust. He told everyone that no matter what the problem was, it would be cured by the overlord. He asked everyone to trust the overlord without fail. The overlord would also regularly bring John for conversations, letting him pass messages between himself and the people. John was puzzled why the overlord couldn't come forward in person. The overlord said that his appearance was too terrifying. If he appeared, it might not be possible to gain everyone's trust. In the time that followed, John shuttled between the overlord and the conferences, to exchange opinions between the two sides. Over time, a freedom group opposing the overlord appeared. The number of people supporting this group reached over 20 million. John calmly said that instead of having time to oppose the overlord, it would be better to adopt the overlord's suggestions. Now that we have stopped the wars, what we need to do now is to prevent famine. Some people are suffering from hunger. Some people's stomachs are growling with hunger. What we need to do is transport food to those in poverty. So all the warships and military aircraft used by the military had become means of transporting food. The oil pipelines in the Middle East had been converted into water pipelines for Africa. The world was getting better and better. With the help of the overlord, the news broadcast news about the overlord every day. A black boy in a wheelchair recorded everything all the time, and he shared with his mother that this wasn't magic, but what was called being far ahead. At night, the boy's mother was bullied by members of the freedom group. He slid his wheelchair out to stop them, but unable to stand up, he was really helpless. The boy angrily scolded the thug opposite him, "You are no match for the overlord at all." The next second, the boy was shot dead by the thug. At this point, a beam of light appeared above the thug and knocked his pistol away. Then it appeared above the boy. His wound gradually healed. His disabled legs could also stand and walk. He walked slowly towards the thug who hurt him. Just now, the other person was already dead. This was simply a miracle. The freedom group brought the boy's case to trial. He believed that the overlord, who killed someone without permission, had interfered with the judicial organs. A few days later, the leader of the freedom group decided to take action. They kidnapped John, and wanted him to betray the overlord and speak for them. But John shook his head firmly. Everything here was being watched by the overlord, and it was being broadcast live to everyone. At the moment the freedom group's bullet was fired, time stood still and the signal was cut off. The overlord did this to let the people see their ugly faces. With this, the freedom group completely collapsed. John communicated with the overlord again. Why had he been refusing to come out and meet everyone? Everyone was eager to see his true form. But the overlord said that all this takes time, until the world reaches a beautiful state. With that, the overlord said goodbye to John. That black child swore in his heart to be the first man to get into the overlord's planet. 15 years later, Mike was admitted to his ideal university. John and his wife were living a comfortable life, but they had been troubled by infertility. The Earth had been re-established as the ideal utopia for people. Humanity's worship of the overlord was growing deeper and deeper. This was the day the overlord was to descend, and everyone had gathered together. they would finally get to see his true form. Everyone looked up at the sky with anticipation. The spaceship that had stayed for 15 years started up again. Everyone held their breath as another bright light flashed. As requested by the Overlord, 2 children went to greet him. A huge figure slowly appeared. A monster with horns and wings stood in the middle of the stage. People finally saw his true appearance. Some people couldn't help but vomit. John finally understood why the Overlord refused to meet them for so long. Mike, who was once saved by the Overlord, now worked in a research institute, but there was almost no one working here. Only Mike was concentrating on studying the motives behind the Overlord's actions. Late at night on this day, the same thing that happened before occurred again at John's house. That beam of strong light shot into his house again. He went to the warehouse, where he met the Overlord after years of separation. He told John that the Earth would face a new test this time. With that said, the Overlord left in his spacecraft. By day, people's attention once again focused on this farm. Soon, the world underwent another series of changes. High-rise buildings shook and animals began to twitch. Mysterious numbers flashed across Mike's computer screen, and everything seemed so strange. The Overlord's true purpose was chilling. Late at night, the spherical flying objects emitted strong light that illuminated every corner. The boy in the room trembled all over. Then the strong light shone on the boy's mother's belly. On the other side, Mike resumed his research on the Overlord. He discovered that since the Overlord's appearance, human technology had been stagnant. There were no more inventions. He told the director of his findings, but the latter didn't care. Since there was an alien civilization, why bother doing these complicated things? Mike looked through numerous ancient books. He was astonished to find that the image of the devil in them had an origin. The Overlord had come to Earth before, but the difference was that in the books, the Overlord was depicted as a monster, not worshipped by everyone as he was now. On the other hand, something strange happened to a boy. It was as if a mysterious power had been implanted in him. His eyes were filled with coldness, and he was reticent. He often suffered severe headaches. It felt as if something in his head was going to explode, and he would let out screams involuntarily. He inexplicably gained superpowers, and his emotions became more and more irritable. The parents took the boy to see a psychologist. Under the guidance of the psychologist, the boy said he had been to a certain place. There was a huge there was fire and smoke on the ground, and someone had taken him there. The doctor was stunned. He comforted the boy, saying that all this was just what he imagined in his mind. He had never been to that place, but the boy insisted that he had been there. At this point, the boy had a hallucination. The cross necklace around the doctor's neck made him very uneasy. The doctor was chilled by this behavior, and quickly got up to leave. The boy's father chased after the doctor, wanting to ask what had happened. The doctor remained silent. As time went on, John's health got worse and worse, and he fainted on the farm. His wife took him to the hospital for an examination. It turned out that there was radiation in John's body that caused him to become like this. Lying in the hospital bed, John finally told his wife the truth. The Overlord had said that there was some kind of substance in his spaceship that had poisoned him. John felt that he wouldn't survive this time. His wife comforted him, saying that he had done what the Overlord had asked. He would definitely not let you lose your life. After his wife went back home from the hospital, the signal at home appeared again. She knew it was the Overlord's doing again, so she said to the air, "Let's talk. Our lives haven't been good since you appeared, including my inability to get pregnant. It's all because John was poisoned in your spaceship." That night, the psychologist Mary came to the boy's door. Again, she saw a mysterious flying object hovering above the house. She held up the cross in her hand, and the sphere emitted a mysterious bright light at her. Before flying away quickly, she quickly knocked on the boy's door, and told the couple that the Overlord was monitoring them. But the boy's parents were very skeptical of Mary's words, and they asked her not to mention this matter again. Their son had gradually returned to normal. Mary began to fall into confusion. She went to John's farm to talk with his wife. She wanted to see the Overlord's true appearance, and was surprised to find many children outside the farm. They all came here specially. On this day, the Research Institute held a talk meeting with the Overlord. Those invited were all political leaders from various countries. Mike and his girlfriend also came here. The whole venue was surrounded by crowds. The boy's family also came here, because the blogger from the Research Institute learned about what happened to the boy before and invited their family over. On the other side, Mike saw through the window that the spaceship had arrived, which meant the Overlord would appear soon. Sure enough, he soon descended among the people, responding to everyone's enthusiastic cheers. The Overlord said that with his help, scientific research had achieved great accomplishments. Diseases and sufferings no longer occurred. Everyone's scientific research had become redundant. Everyone should be proud of his contributions. Then he went on to say that he would take animals from Earth to his home for exhibition. At this point, Mike interrupted the Overlord, asking why he was blocking human scientific research. The Overlord interrupted Mike before he finished speaking, although he had a strong sense of curiosity. But this kind of research would lead to dangers that they couldn't control in the future. It was like a threat, yet also like a warning. Anyway, The overlord declared to everyone that humans' exploration of new technologies was all a waste of time, and what they could enjoy now would accompany everyone forever. After the overlord finished speaking, he walked into the middle of the crowd. He glanced at the boy's mother in the crowd, then someone invited her over. The doctor took the boy and his mother away, only leaving the father where he was. He was brought to visit the animal specimens collected by the overlord. The boy miraculously found that he seemed to have been here before. Just then, the boy's father came to take him away. The mother, who was left alone, was taken by the overlord to a mysterious instrument. The woman was very scared and could only do as she was ordered. First, she stood on it, then put her hand on it. When she reached out and touched the instrument, in an instant, a dazzling white light beam pierced the night, the sky thundered and lightning flashed, and the woman's body began to tremble. The overlord was chanting incantations. On the side, everyone present was deeply captivated by this scene. Mike keenly sensed that there was a special symbol in the light beam. At this point, the boy shared the same consciousness as his mother. He resisted his father, then kept running all the way to a tall building, and stretched out his hand towards the sky. He jumped down with his whole body. The mother also stopped convulsing. Her whole body fell to the ground, and the overlord kept saying "It's over" in his mouth. The father came to check on the boy, and found him floating in the air with his arms outstretched. He was less than half a meter above the ground. The father held him in his arms, not seeing the strange smile flash across the boy's face, and he murmured "Jennifer is great" in his mouth. But no one knew that it was the fetus in the mother's womb that truly received the consciousness. A huge conspiracy was about to unfold. Mike noticed something was wrong. He took out the star chart and hurried home. To sketch the symbol, he discovered that this symbol was actually an interstellar coordinate. It pointed directly to the overlord's home planet. After the woman went back home, she felt unwell and had severe pain in her stomach. In the daytime, the overlord came to John's house again. What was different this time was that John actually brought a gun and met the overlord in the warehouse. John told the overlord that his life had undergone earth-shaking changes since he left and never came back. His health was also not good. The overlord said, "But I brought you something good. It's that mysterious device from before that can make you healthy again." Soon, John's wife and the psychologist Mary came in. When Mary saw the overlord, she began to scold him angrily. "You deliberately made John sick and made his wife unable to get pregnant." At this point, the overlord admitted it. John's illness wouldn't cause infertility. Everything was his doing. It was he who ended John's fertility. John looked at him in disbelief. It turned out that it was the overlord who caused problems with his body, not because he had stayed in the spaceship. His wife couldn't bear it and pointed a gun at the overlord, and she said to him, "Having children is part of our lives. We want to raise them, love them, and watch them grow up. It's you who have deprived us of our family." John also didn't understand. It was he who introduced the overlord to everyone. Why treat him like this? But the overlord didn't realize he was wrong. He thought he was helping John's wife by solving the pain of raising children. At this point, Mary pointed a gun at the overlord. With a precise shot, the overlord fell right away. John went to check. The overlord closed his eyes before finishing his words, but no one knew what John was thinking. He took the device the overlord had just given him, and revived him. Mary went home in a daze. That night, she saw her deceased mother. Mary walked forward until she fell from the balcony. The boy's mother gave birth to a baby girl and named her Jennifer. What they didn't know was that the overlord had been watching this baby girl from above. 4 years later, with the overlord's help, the children became stronger. It can be said that they have evolved into the next version. The overlord came to John's door again, and told him about the next changes in the world, but John said he had no children. He didn't want to know anything anymore. The next day, a strange scene occurred. Mike and his wife found a girl in the open space, looking up at the sky, with her right hand raised at a 45-degree angle. Her eyes were dull, and she was muttering "Jennifer." This kind of thing wasn't an isolated case. Children in the classroom, children outdoors, children in the yard. Mike quickly called Jennifer's mother, telling her to check on her daughter right away. When her mother came in, Jennifer was very calm, and she also told her mother that she could see the fear in her eyes. After speaking, she showed her mother her ability to levitate. The parents sensed something was wrong, and planned to pack their things and leave. Jennifer used her mind to make all the children outside feel that they could communicate directly without speaking. The father drove the children away but was surrounded. Halfway, Jennifer made a gesture from a distance, and the children moved aside to make way. Could it be that this is the child chosen by the overlord, the leader of the children? Things became creepy. This was the 20th year since the overlord arrived on Earth. Their advanced technology had brought Earth into a golden age. Children born had extraordinary superpowers. Mike also kept doing research. Because the children Jennifer's mother had given birth to in the past were also unusual, he finally came to a shocking conclusion. The conspiracy behind it was complicated and confusing. He contacted Jennifer's parents again to tell them his thoughts. The parents were also full of worries about their daughter's abilities. To make sure their daughter's safety, they agreed to Mike's request and started a remote video Q&A. Mike asked Jennifer to look at him, but she didn't do so. It seemed as if her mind was controlled by someone else. Then Mike showed a symbol, and asked Jennifer to turn her head and look, questioning what she saw. She replied that she saw everything. At this point, the video was interrupted due to interference. At this point, Mike was fully convinced that the Overlord's purpose wasn't simple. In his desperation, he came up with a plan. The Overlord would transport a batch of animals back to his home planet at regular intervals. He asked his girlfriend to put him into a vacuum bag as well. If animals could survive, then he certainly could too. His girlfriend was very worried, but seeing Mike's determination to explore, she finally chose to help him. This was a dangerous move, but for the safety of humanity, Mike was determined to go. The Overlord's conspiracy was about to be revealed. That day, everyone was watching a movie. At the exciting part, the Overlord's face appeared on the big screen, speaking to everyone. "This is the last time I will speak to you. You have enjoyed decades of peace and prosperity. Even the most glorious days of humanity's golden age will come to an end. You are about to get into darkness. Your children no longer belong to you. They are going to evolve to a higher level. They aren't humans either. No more children will be born on Earth, and Earth will no longer belong to humanity. Live as you can." After saying this, the fetus in the womb of a pregnant woman vanished. Children, one after another, slowly flew toward the sky in the same posture. On the ground were parents crying aloud. No matter how they shouted, the children kept floating upward. Humanity got into the countdown to doomsday. The Overlord's turnaround was so quick, the existing people became the last batch of humans on Earth. The Overlord would continue to satisfy them until all of them died. On the other side, Mike came out of the vacuum bag to catch his breath. Exhausted, he quickly injected himself with adrenaline. Here, he saw aliens like the Overlord, but they didn't harm him. Instead, they told him about their planet and the differences between here and Earth. The aliens told him that everything that happened on Earth had been planned for a long time by the one and only Overmind of all things, and their goal was to change the world. Mike looked outside. Huge flying objects. There were no signs of life at all in this vast universe. And that mysterious beam of light, it turned out that the so-called Overlord was also a messenger. Mike got into that beam of light. This was an unknown space. Everything around was white. A blurry figure appeared in front of him. It was the Overmind. It had no physical form. It was both separable and inseparable, an aggregate of the universe's consciousness. The children on Earth all belonged to it. All of this was part of its plan. Mike fainted. When he woke up, the Overlord told him that 85 years had passed. Earth was no longer there. The doomsday-like scene was beyond his acceptance. The Overlord told Mike that he had brought his girlfriend here. Mike looked over. His girlfriend was floating quietly in the air, completely unconscious. The necklace around her neck was still the gift he had given her. Mike reached out and pulled, and his girlfriend's body turned into fragments right away. Mike was unaware of the time difference. The cruel truth was right in front of him. He couldn't believe that he was the only human left from Earth. In his conversation with Mike, the Overlord told him that he envied human children. They could go wherever they wanted, but with his ugly appearance, he couldn't get close to the places he wanted to go. The Overlord invited Mike to stay on the spaceship here, as the last human, but Mike refused. He said he was from Earth, and would go back to Earth in the end. The Overlord was shocked after hearing this. It couldn't believe that humans would make such a decision, so it agreed to his choice. Mike was sent to Earth. He found that the once vibrant place had become barren. With no grass growing, all life had long since lost its vitality. The laughter and joy of the past had turned into deathly stillness. Mike sat on a shabby sofa, and took out the recorder given by the Overlord. After speaking, he stood up and walked forward. There were still human bone remains on the ground. He spotted a beam of light on a distant mountain. Inside it, a girl with outstretched arms was absorbing energy. The girl was the former Jennifer. Mike felt incredulous and collapsed to the ground. He felt that the Earth was about to disintegrate. Mike begged the Overlord not to let the Earth be destroyed like this. There must be some remnants of civilization left. This species must not lose all traces of its existence. Out of admiration for humanity, the Overlord felt a sense of compassion. He downloaded a song from Mike's consciousness. To the sound of sad music, all life on Earth came to an end. With a loud bang, the Earth was immediately torn apart by powerful energy. A brilliant civilization perished in this way. The Overlord's spaceship continued onward to its next target. Finally, the Overlord left this song here to remind passing intelligent life. There was once life here. Childhood's End is a sci-fi classic with profound philosophical depth. It explores the final fate of human civilization. It provokes thought with its grand narrative and shocking ending. Unlike mainstream sci-fi works, there's no heroic resistance or intense interstellar war in the film. The Overlords arrive on Earth with absolute power. Human resistance is ineffective. In the end, humanity can only accept the fate of being guided. This narrative approach breaks the anthropocentrism of traditional sci-fi. It makes the audience face a cruel reality directly. Human struggles are meaningless in the face of higher civilizations. The golden age brought by the overlords seems perfect. Wars have vanished, diseases have been cured, and material goods are very abundant. But this utopian rule also made humans lose their spirit of exploration, reducing them to a caged civilization. Finally, humanity's childhood came to an end. With the collective evolution of the new generation of children, they merged into the overmind, while the old humanity moved toward extinction. This setting is both shocking and sorrowful. It makes people wonder, if the final form of civilization must sacrifice the individual, the overlord's image, similar to Western demons, destroyed humanity's religious beliefs, yet their very existence transcends the scope of scientific explanation. When an alien civilization arrives with miraculous abilities, how should humanity redefine its position in the universe? The film successfully presents its core theme: humanity is merely a link in the evolutionary process of the universe, not the main character. If higher civilizations truly exist, is humanity ready to face its own insignificance? This question still has practical significance to this day. Childhood's End isn't an enjoyable work, but a thought-provoking fable. It coldly proclaims that humanity's childhood will eventually end, and true maturity may mean the dissolution of individual consciousness, and the collective sublimation of civilization. As Len, the leader of the overlords, said, "Remember that we will always envy you, because humanity at least once had the right to choose, even if it eventually comes to an end." If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.